Hi, welcome to Reloading Part 2, Intermediate to Competitive. I'm John Larroquette. Now, if you watched the first tape in our series, you'll know that I got a basic but complete education in the wonderful hobby of hand-loading your own centerfire ammunition for rifle and pistol. In the second tape, we are going to learn secrets that will allow us to make ammunition more accurate than you could possibly buy in a store. And the two gentlemen who taught me the basics are going to take us to that level of expertise. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce them so they can help us become even better shots and build safer, more accurate ammunition. First, my good friend, who I have shot in the field with for many years and at the range, and he has taught me a great deal about how to become a good marksman, the editor-in-chief of Varmint Hunter magazine and the president of the Varmint Hunters Association, my friend Ned Kalbfleisch.
John?
Ned.
Good to see you.
I'm looking forward to this second part of my education.
So am I.
All right?
So am I.
And we've got a gentleman who is really going to be able to show us the unique aspects of this sport.
He is the man.
And speaking of the man, our next guest, who is really the professor of reloading, a gentleman who has created on his own some of the most successful Wildcat cartridges in history, who has been the outdoor editor, the
shooting
editor of Outdoor Life for over 25 years, a gentleman who I consider a real mentor and a teacher beyond reproach. Please welcome Mr. Jim Carmichael.
Buddy, good to see you, John.
Good to see you, sir.
That was a tremendous introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Hey,
Jim, partner.
how's it going?
So, we ready to get really fancy with this hobby?
Oh, we're going to get fancy.
Okay.
A little quiz first.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to cover up so you can see the answers. How many shots do you see in this group?
In this group, on this target, I would say, well, it's awfully small, so 3 maybe, 4 maybe.
Okay, let's uncover 10 shots.
Now, this is 10 shots, and at 200 yards.
200 yards.
And this is with hand-loaded?
Hand-loaded ammunition. As a matter of fact, this is not just a pick target. This is a target that I actually fired in bench rest competition.
Well, you must have won first prize with a group that small.
Don't I wish. As a matter of fact, it was only good for third prize.
Third prize.
Well, what I'm saying is, by that is, I'm demonstrating with this target the level of accuracy that can be achieved with hand-loaded ammunition if you apply the right techniques.
Well, obviously the right techniques and the right equipment is necessary, so I think that's where we should get started, huh?
I think we should go now.
All right, well,
We've got a lot to do.
let's go have some fun.
Well, Jim, it looks like it's time to go ahead and start sorting some brass into groups here, do some weighing and so forth.
That's right. You know, a lot of folks may not understand why you would want to sort brass, but remember what we're doing on this tape in advanced competitive loading is making everything the best of everything. You know, I've told you before, and I'd like to repeat this again, that the case is the fountain from which accuracy flows. Now, when you built your custom rifle and paid a lot of money for the special accuracy features into it, you remember that the gunsmith lapped the lugs so that they would be square, and he squared up the face of the bolt so it would be square. But all of that could be lost if the cartridge case itself is not square. So what we're going to do is square this case so that it will fit in this accuracy chain. Remember, that's what we're talking about, the accuracy chain. And we don't want any weak links. And we're going to begin by sorting the good cases from the bad ones. Now, they all look the same. You have a bag of cases, but there may be differences in them, and we're going to get the bad ones out. The way we do this is simply with a scale. And I'm going to weigh one. And the advantage of using the electric scale is that we can tare it. That means when we put it on tare for 0, that becomes our standard. So that's a 0 standard. Let's put that aside. There's another one. This is within 0.2 of a grain of weighing the same as the other. That means that's a good one. We'll put that with. What we're looking for are cases that vary 3 or 4 grains.
Okay, up to 3 or 4 grains is what you prefer?
We want to keep them within a half a grain, ideally.
All right.
But
and this is new brass.
That's new brass.
Too. Yeah, this is
and it looks like
brass.
this one again is right there where we want it to be.
Pretty consistent.
It's
bunch of brass
within a
here.
half. Yeah, it's good brass. So we know after we've done just a few, we already know that one's over half a grain.
Yeah.
We're going to set that aside. We're going to call these our prime lot here, and this is going to be lot number 2 over there.
Mm-hmm.
There again, that one's a little light. Let's put that one, that's going to be over in lot number 3. Those that are a little too heavy go here, those a little too light go here, but those that all fall within that half a grain go here. That's a prime lot. That's a good one. This is good brass.
Yes.
Usually when you find a lot of brass, when you start getting variations immediately, big variations, you can figure the whole lot is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me tell you what we are really looking for here. Why does that make a difference? Actually, the weight variation is not important, but during the drawing process, when the case is formed, they begin with a disc of brass, and it's drawn and it's stretched and pulled out. And if the dies are new, the drawing dies I'm talking about, they're used by the manufacturer, are good ones and they're tight and crisp, then they draw the case wall thickness very evenly. And we want that case wall thickness to be even all around. In fact, we're going to measure that. We'll measure these cases to make sure they are. But if the manufacturing process was sloppy, then what happens is that it's thick on one side, it's thin on the other side, then when it's trimmed off, then you really can't see what the problem is, but you can spot the problem sometimes by when you weigh it. That means there's some cases in there that are thin, thinner than the others, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yes.
And what we really want to miss are those cases that are thick on one side and thin on another. And we'll get into that a bit later. But we've got some good brass here. There's another one right on. Okay, well we can.
We'll just finish.
We'll
finish
this
sorting
up.
these.
Let's
since we're done,
sort
and
these out.
We'll move on to the
and
next
move
thing.
on to the next step.
Okay, super.
We're flying. Okay, even though weighing the cases will eliminate most of the bad ones, we still are not able to see inside the case by weighing them. So we're going to use an instrument. And these instruments look a little complicated perhaps because it has a dial gauge, but actually it's a simple tool and very easy to use. It's simply a matter of putting the case over the stylus, and I get a reading on the dial in thousandths of an inch, and as I turn the case, I'm reading the actual wall thickness all the way around. Now what I'm concerned with is not the thickness of the wall so much as the uniformity of the thickness all the way around. Remember, that thickness is one of the links in our accuracy chain. And I'm going to measure the wall thickness at about 3 different points. One point just at the head, another about midway up the body, and then the third just behind the shoulder. Now, as I'm turning this, I see a variation of about, almost no variation. Here at the shoulder, it's coming back to 0 every time. Even at the head, I was only getting less than 1/1000th of an inch run out. And that's certainly within tolerances for the very best brass. But that is one good case, but we have to measure them all.
Right.
And let me show you, Ned, what we're really looking for with this cutaway case. You can see the wall thickness,
Yes.
and you see that it tapers. It's thinner and thinner towards the shoulder. So that's what we're going to measure at 3 different points, and we want the thickness to be the same all the way around. And if it's not, we know we have an uneven case that's going to cause accuracy problems later on. So we're eliminating that problem before we get to it.
And what sort of accuracy problem would that cause,
Well,
Jim?
what that will cause is when we fire it. Remember when we go back to your rifle, the heads with the square lugs and the lap lugs and the square head. Well, what happens here is when it's fired, the case has less resistance to expansion on one side than it does on the other side. So when the pressure, the thrust to the rear, will cause the case to push a little harder on one side or a lot harder with thousands of pounds of pressure, and that upsets the whole point of having the lugs lap and having the bolt face squared. So the whole thing is out of kilter again. What really happens in the rifle when you have these uneven pressures is that a typical rifle has 2 locking lugs. And if the pressure is uneven on one of the lugs, it pushes harder puts more pressure on one side of the action. That causes the action to flex or to bend slightly. That causes it to flex the stock. It causes the barrel to vibrate in an uneven way. And suddenly, accuracy is lost. So we want everything uniform. Remember, that's part of the accuracy chain. And it begins with the case. This is the fountain from which all accuracy flows.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and finish checking these and get on to the next process.
Now we're going to forge another link in our accuracy chain. Ned, you remember when we discussed the need for the case to be square?
Absolutely.
Now we have a good lot of cases. We know that the wall thickness is uniform. We know that the weight is uniform. But still, what if the head of the case were not square? That means that we'd have uneven pressure when we fire it. We get an uneven load on the locking lug of the rifles. Accuracy suffers. So we're going to square this up. Now we're getting into some of my real secrets here. This is stuff that you can't read in most reloading books. But this is the stuff that the champion shooters use to make their ammunition just that little bit better that it takes to win.
Now this is the same, we're going through the same process that you yourself go through when you're competing in the bench rest competitions.
Every time.
I know that you compete nationally and internationally.
As a matter of fact, some of my fellow competitors are going to say, how come you gave our secrets away? And I'll say, well,
you invented them anyway. You'll give them to whomsoever you please.
For the sake of accuracy. Now this is a simple tool. It's a simple hand tool that's ordinarily used for simply trimming case links. But I'm going to use it a bit differently. Rather than turn the neck off, I'm going to turn the head of the case off. Now this has to be done with a precision die like this Wilson die that holds the case perfectly aligned in the tool. Also, you have to do this with new brass. That's important that you use new unfired brass, because once you fire it, then the brass will adjust itself to the rifle so that it will never be square again. So watch how I simply lock this up so it's tight. I know that everything is square, and I just begin to take a few turns off the back. This is strictly a look and see operation. Take it out and see.
Make sure that it's all fit.
See there, I just made a little turn. See how it turned part of the case off?
That's beautiful.
And part of it didn't touch. It just squared it up. It took the high side off. And now I have a perfectly square case so that we'll be square in the rifle.
I believe this is the least discussed or publicized element of precision competitive hand loading. I know.
It's been a secret.
I know. We're moving to South America and changing our names.
Right. So we knock that off, put another one in. We're really moving. You know, the interesting thing about this, you think when you get high accuracy, you know, the ultra accuracy, it takes a lot of very expensive and very complicated tools. But you notice I'm using the simplest tool here. All through this loading process of super accurate ammunition is done with the simplest hand tools.
Well, you get your best precision work with your hand equipment.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's so great that there are companies like Sinclair and so forth that are making this kind of equipment
That's
for
great.
the reloader who wants to advance. Because, you know, 15 years ago, I'm sure you had the same problem that I did. If you wanted something, you had to find someone to machine it out just to your specifications.
Sure, and it was expensive then. And that's when accuracy was the domain of just a few tool and die makers. But now anyone can buy it. Just getting the right tools, and they're inexpensive putting together. Look at this one, Ned. See
Right.
how high that was?
That really shows.
It really shows the difference.
how
And
much you
see
had to take off,
now,
yeah.
if this had been fired in your rifle, actually the lugs in your rifle would have moved this much probably. And you can see what that would do to accuracy.
Absolutely.
Tap it out, and another one.
Well, we'll just go along and turn the rest of these
finish
heads
these
then,
up.
Right? Okay. Great.
Well, Ned, we have some beautifully turned case heads now. They're square. That means they're going to fit in the rifle against the bolt head very squarely, which means that we've gained some accuracy already just by a simple hand operation. And we're going to continue hand operations by squaring up the bottom of the primer pocket. And it's a simple tool. You can get these from the catalog houses that specialize in accuracy accessories. And all this is a hand tool.
We're going to have the names of a few of those companies at the end of the video, too, so guys
It's a
know
good
how
idea,
to-
so we know
right.
what to order.
folks know how to
That's
get
right.
in touch with them.
And see how I'm doing this? I just drop this into
Right.
the primer pocket, give it a few turns, and I can feel it cut as I'm doing that. And you see it's squared up the bottom.
Right.
This is particularly important when you're cutting off some of the case head too, because you're changing the dimension of the primer pocket. So we're going back to an original depth.
Okay. And this is not only cleaning it, this is uniforming.
We're not cleaning it. These are brand new unfired cases.
Right.
So we're uniforming it. Simple tool. Now, there's something else that you can't see in a cartridge case, and that is the inside of the flash hole. Now, the manufacturers cannot help this. It's not a fault of theirs, but when they punch the flash hole, they use like a pin that hits it. And when it goes through the brass, it causes a little irregular wall to form, a little flashing or flaring on the inside.
The brass they're pushing through fans out.
Fans
at the
out,
top of the flash hole.
in fact, I'm going to show you a close-up of those, so we'll see what it looks like. But anyway, since they are not uniform from case to case, that can affect the way that the propellant is ignited from case to case. So we're part of the accuracy chain. We're going to make that flash hole perfectly uniform, again, with a simple hand tool by dropping this. See, it has a little cutting edge on the end. Here. We just put it inside the case. Give it a turn or two. I can feel when you do this, you'll feel the cutter catch the flash, turn it, it comes off. Now we've cut that away and we have a case that is also uniform on the inside of the primer pocket as well as the outside. Simple, fast, easy to do.
And this is really an
Process.
important step because I've done this to a number of cases, and what has happened is when that punch goes through there, rather than actually punching through and making a lot of little pieces, one piece just flips over, and that's really bad. That really can affect the primer flash going into the powder.
It sure does. And sometimes we can't measure those things. And
Right.
A shooter may say, well, what difference does it make? But it's not the little things that makes the difference. It's a lot of little things all added together that make the big picture of accuracy.
Why don't we go ahead and take a look at a flash hole
Yeah.
in the cutaway there and show everybody where the flash hole is. And it might be a
bet.
good time for you to give us a brief explanation of exactly how these brass cases are made.
Well, that's a good idea. A cartridge case begins with a big roll of brass, and they roll it out in sheets and actually stamp big discs of brass, and then put it into drawing dies that begins to form these discs into a cup. And it draws and draws. You'd be surprised. It looks a lot like the top of a tube of lipstick that it draws. And then after it's shaped and drawn further, and it gets longer and longer, then they put it in dies that give the characteristic shape to the shoulder and the neck. And they cut the rim, punch the primer pocket, and then the pin that goes through that knocks the hole for the flash hole. And then it isn't finished because a brass case is harder at the base than it is at the neck. It's required that the neck and the shoulder be soft so they can expand. So by a series of annealing processes, application of heat to the right places, it softens it, and it's hard at the base where the strength is needed, it's soft at the mouth where expansion is needed.
It's really a marvel of metallurgy and the technology in metallurgy that the quality of brass today is so good.
It really is.
It's amazing, and it's
brass.
largely responsible for the accuracy that we're able to get out of today's modern firearms.
That's right, and by refining the brass by hand as we're doing, then we really bring it up to top accuracy standards. In
take a
fact,
look at that
in this
flash hole.
cutaway, you can even see the flash hole, and you can see that bit of flashing that we were cutting away
That burr.
in there.
Right, I see that.
Very, very clear. But like I say, that's just one of those little things that don't seem important, but a lot of little things, when you put them together, that's the difference between winning and losing. Well, Ned, we've put together some beautiful case heads. Now we're going to swap ends, and we're going to the mouth of the case, the neck specifically. You know, one of the most accuracy-enhancing modifications we can perform on a case is turning the thickness of the neck wall to a uniform dimension.
Absolutely.
A lot of people ask about that, and there's a lot of confusion and I think misinformation about why you would want to turn a case neck. Some people say, well, why would you want to turn a case neck if it fits in the case anyway? How does that help? But other people say, well, it's important because some target rifles have chambers that are specifically cut. And I want to talk about the chamber and the neck dimension of the chamber, so that it's very, very tight. So tight, in fact, that you could not put factory ammunition into it, which means that you have to cut the neck down to a certain dimension so that it fits very, very snugly in the chamber. Now, the reason that is important is because it controls the amount that the neck expands when it is fired. And by controlling that minimal amount of expansion, then you get a very exact alignment with the bullet in the bore. But it helps also, and here's the point of confusion, I think, is to say, what difference does it make if you have a large chamber neck? Because after all, anything will fit and it's going to expand a lot anyway. But also, by turning case necks to uniform thickness, you have a very uniform pressure holding the bullet from round to round. And that means the ignition is more uniform, the bullet release is more uniform. Since that is more uniform, you have more uniform velocity from shot to shot, and uniformity is the name of the game for accuracy.
Yes, neck tension is too frequently overlooked. I don't know about you, but in my experience, what most people say to me, they're under the impression that the only time that turning a neck is to their advantage is either if it won't fit in the chamber, such as happens with a 220 Swift after multiple firings, or if they have a tight neck chamber, and that's just not true.
Exactly.
It's all about uniformity.
And that is an interesting thing about that. It's one of the most easy things to demonstrate the advantage of. For example, a fellow says, well, my factory rifle only shoots an inch, which is pretty good for any rifle. And I can say, okay, we can do nothing except turn the neck on your cases to a uniform thickness, and I'll guarantee you we can take 1/4 of an inch off of your group sizes. Sometimes you can cut accuracy in half. It's a fast and easy thing to do, and once you do it one time, you don't have to do it again to that batch of cases. The job is over.
Exactly.
But it's always worth the effort. And we're going to do 2 different types of neck turning. We're going to turn some necks just for an average rifle, and then we're going to turn the necks for what I would call an accuracy-specific chamber. And I'm going to show you the dimensions and how to decide just how much brass should be cut from the neck for best accuracy. But before we begin the trimming, we need to make sure that the case neck is square. Again, when they come from the factory, the neck may not be perfectly in alignment with the body of the case. It may have been dented. Lots of things happen to them. It's just the normal handling. And a very fast and easy operation, and again with an inexpensive tool, is what's called an expanding spindle. And you can get these in different sizes, for any size, for different calibers. And it's just a simple matter of putting it in the reloading press. No particular adjustment needed, because all we're doing is we're running that up over the neck. And you see what that did is iron the case nice and round from the inside. It took the dents off, it lined the neck with the rest of the case. See, fast and easy.
You know, when you're taking your brass to the nth degree for accuracy, it becomes really apparent that if you get into developing a Wildcat, something I know you've done a lot of very, very successfully, it's really important to start with a parent case that you can get good brass for.
That's right.
That's probably one of the most important things in working up a new Wildcat.
Absolutely, that's the consideration. Sometimes Wildcat cartridges come to grief simply because even though the idea was good, there was not good brass available.
Exactly.
You have, like I say again, and I cannot say this enough times, the case is the fountain from which accuracy flows.
Right. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and we'll finish these.
We'll finish these, and then we're going to get the neck turning tools out, and I'm going to show you 3 different ways to turn necks.
Well, you know, Jim, anytime we get this many gadgets on the table, I'm a happy guy because, as you know, I'm a gadgeteer like yourself. And we get all this up on the table. It's all I can do not to froth at the mouth.
Well, that's one of the great charms of hand loading, is because you get to use so many gadgets. In fact, I think most shooters are gadgeteers.
Absolutely.
You show me a guy that likes guns and shooting. He'll also like cameras, and he'll also like fast cars, not to mention pretty girls. But that's all. It's all part of it. And you notice that these are we're just using very small hand tools too. There's nothing elaborate. For example, with this this neck turning, we're only going to use a small tool, hand tool, to hold the case and to lock it in place. Now, since we're loading these cases for your rifle, which has a standard dimension chamber, we're not going to turn them to a specific thickness. We're just going to make them all uniform. Now, we can pick up the mic. And by the way, this is something that everyone that does precision hand loading needs, is a tube mic. These are just micrometers that are made to measure the thickness of pipe and tubes, but we use them here to measure the thickness of the neck.
And this tube mic has been slightly modified right in there,
right.
so that it will fit inside the neck. But they're available from the really
from good
high-end shooting supply
Sure.
places. Yes.
Now we're going to make a check here, and we'd say, well, this is there's 13.5 thousandths on one side. Let's turn this neck over, and
that's
there's
way out.
15.5 thousandths. So you see, there's 2 thousandths off. There goes up to 16.5 thousandths there. So they would all be like this. And you really cannot blame the manufacturer for this, because we're getting down to the real nitty-gritty. This falls well within specifications. Sometimes case necks will vary 5 or 6 thousandths from one side to the other. But these little things that we're going to correct is what makes the great accuracy. By the way, speaking of accuracy, I think that hand loading has done a tremendous job to improve the accuracy of factory ammunition.
Absolutely.
You know, when I was a kid, and I wanted to always, like all kids and all grown-ups, want an accurate rifle, and I would save and buy a what I thought was an expensive rifle, and I would shoot it, and I'd say, gee, this is not as accurate as that it's supposed to be. So I'd send it back to the factory, and I'd say, I'm using your rifle and your ammunition, which you advertised to be so good, and I don't think it's as good as it should be. And you know what they always said? They would always write back, form letter, and say, we have tested your rifle, and it falls within our specifications. But they never said what their specifications were. But now with hand loading, we told the manufacturers what the specifications of accuracy are. We set the standards of accuracy. And now the manufacturers are having to keep up with the hand loaders because we have shown them what good is. And you know, that's the reason that modern day ammunition is so good. It's so much more accurate than it was just 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago.
Yes.
when I was a kid.
And there are so much more to choose from now, bullet types and varieties and things like that for different applications.
All the equipment, like we say, if you're a gadgeteer, you have everything. Now let's use these gadgets some. This is a simple tool. I guess one of the simplest tools is a neck turning tool, and there are very few tools that you can make a smarter investment in that will improve accuracy more. Look how easy it is to use. I'm simply going to put a little lubricant on it, put it in here, and turn it. I'm turning the tool against the case. We can see it. And I've adjusted this tool so it just kisses the low side, the thin side of the brass. That's one of the questions that are asked over and over. Well, when they say, when you turn your necks, how much do you turn? For an average rifle, say you have a standard dimension, just adjust the tool, and these tools are very easily adjusted, so that it just barely kisses or almost doesn't touch the thin side, and then it will slice away the thick part of the case, and then it's uniform all the way.
I
all
think
the way
once
around.
you explained that to me really well, you said never take off any brass you don't need to.
That's right.
So
Right?
you get right down to just barely touching.
Perfect. See how?
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
See how that's touching that. Then we turn this around. We can see up here where I just barely kissed the thin part.
Right.
And I'm going on down. Also notice that as I go further down the neck with the turning, that I'm cutting more and more brass. That means that the neck was thicker at near the shoulder than it was at the mouth. So we have made another correction in the brass.
Now I know that neck turning is one of the things that you really push people to do to improve their accuracy.
sure do.
And when you turn necks, do you customarily go all the way down to the turnout on the shoulder?
There's two schools of thought on that, or actually two different ways of thinking. For example, someone says, well, I only seat my bullets so they go halfway down the neck anyway, but so why do I want to turn it all the way down? Which is okay. You can turn it as much as you want to, but I like to go all the way down to the shoulder, and so I'm just touching the shoulder as you see here.
Right.
That way you know that the neck is uniform all the way down, and then when you resize it, you have a uniformly resized neck. Now, we have a lot of brass here to do. As you see, this is a hand operation. It's sort of slow. I'm going to
Yes.
speed this operation up just a little bit.
It's
with the
good for
next
in
one.
front of the TV.
It is that.
Well, this is a relatively slow operation, and we've got a couple of ways that are much quicker that I know everybody wants to learn about. So let's go ahead and show
You
them how
bet.
to do that.
Bench rest shooters typically have no more than 25 cases, prepared cases,
Exactly.
For the shooting, so they can do it easily by hand. But if the volumes that you shoot, and I've seen you shoot hundreds and hundreds of rounds a day.
I can't imagine what day that was.
Every day I've been with you, partner. So, simply we're getting up. Ordinary power screwdriver. What could be simpler? Recharge it. The same holder I was using adapts right in there, you see. You can buy these at any hardware store. Most folks already have. Look at this, Ned. Can you believe how fast that is?
Oh yeah.
How's that for zipping brass? Now let me give you a little hint. Now don't tell anyone I told
No,
you.
we'll keep this.
Don't tell anyone
This will
I
be our
told you
little secret,
this.
sort of like Newt
But,
Gingrich's mom.
But I do this in two stages. Doing these little things you learn, particularly when I really want the most accurate brass for hand loading bench rest ammunition. I will cut it almost to the final dimension. Then I will let it rest, normalize for 24 hours or more. Because it's been worked a little bit, it wants to readjust itself.
Creates
and
a
then,
heat, too.
Then I'll come back after it's some of the stresses are gone, and then I'll make one final little cut. We're not going to do that with this ammo because it's field ammo. This
Right.
is for shooting varmints. But look here. Here we go. Put just a little of this wax lubricant on it. Zap.
Well, I've never seen you use that tool before, Jim. I thought I'd seen all your gadgets. Now I guess I have to buy another something.
Well, that's the idea of
I hate
hand
it when
loading.
you get ahead of me.
Buy something else. Now, wait.
I know. Now it's time for the big boy.
Now we're
My
go-
favorite.
Let's say this is the one that you use for
I know,
when
I've
you did
spent-
1,000 rounds for the new cartridge you designed. And what's the name of that cartridge?
The Varmint Viper.
The Varmint Viper. And we tested
And
that.
John and I are the only two with those guns.
And it is a super accurate
Oh, it
operation.
is, yes.
Watch how easy this is. Using this tool. Now, I don't recommend you invest in a tool like this unless you're going to turn
Right.
literally thousands of necks, but it sure is fast. Flip the switch.
And now this
this
is
in there.
turning at 90 RPMs also.
This is supposed to be the ideal speed for turning brass.
Right, and that is just so smooth and so fast and so
And it
perfect.
makes a beautiful, beautiful cut.
Right, that's perfect. That is absolutely.
Isn't that fast?
Yes, that
Look
is
how
absolutely
fast
the
I'm
best
doing
way to
this.
do that. Let's do one and pull it off and have a look at it. I know everybody wants to.
Okay.
You're not nervous about all these cameras and lights like I am, are you?
Never.
Okay.
Look how true that case is running in
Yes.
that chuck. That's because we squared up the head so that it's so uniform.
Right. Yeah, that's perfect cut. That's a perfect cut.
And
Yeah, let's have a
look at
that.
this. And you see how we just barely kissed
Right.
this thin part, but when we turn it over, we see where we cut the high side
And then we can
off.
mic that to
Mic it. Oh, it's going to be.
to make sure that it's
We know
absolutely
it's
dead on. Yeah.
absolutely
we
dead
we
on.
had about 3,000.
Okay, there we are.
Okay.
We've cut that to 13 and a half. That's with the thin side. We turn it over. Dead on.
perfect.
13. Anywhere we put the mic now, at the top,
Yes.
at the mouth or near the shoulder, it's always the same dimension. This is going to pay off big in the field.
Oh yeah.
And it really shows on the target.
I may be able to hit something with that.
When did you ever? Yes.
That's great. Okay, well, let's go ahead and finish turning these so we can get on to the next operation. I know everybody out there is excited to
Okay.
see what's coming next.
And the next operation is going to be turning necks for specific chambers. Now we're going to do a little math that way. It's going to get a little more complicated.
Are you going to tell us your dreaded donut story then?
Oh, we'll come to that later
All right.
when we are
All right.
voting. Well, Ned, your cases are almost perfect. We have turned all the necks down now, and the only final operation is trimming them all to the exact length. Because we trim the heads, of course, we change the length of them, and as they come out of the package, they tend to vary a little bit anyway. So we're going to make them perfect. And I like to use this small hand tool that has the micrometer setting on it because I can adjust within. If I want to take an additional thousandths off, it's just a matter of turning it a thousandths, and there it is. And I'm just kissing it. Don't want to take too much off these. Just make them uniform. Tap it out. See that? And I'm using a different kind of chamfering tool now. This is a K&M Services chamfering tool that will cut the chamfer on the inside to an exact depth for each one. In other words, I'm not trusting just my handwork, but I'm turning it until it comes to a dead stop with these little fingers.
Yeah, they make some great tools.
They really do.
Yeah, for this level of hand loading.
Simple, tap, just a turn. Out. And the same again. Now this tool does not cut the burr off the outside edge, so we can do that with our other old burring tool. And that is a case that has had everything done to it that we can do. We have squared the head, we have cut the primer pockets to a uniform depth, we have cut the flashing off of the inside of the flash hole, we have trimmed the neck wall thickness so it's absolutely uniform, and we have cut them off to the same length. Now we're ready to do the important part. We're going to seat some primers, we're going to put the powder in it, and we're going to show you a new way to seat bullets. Earlier, I'd mentioned cutting case neck thickness to a specific dimension for a specific chamber dimension. Now let me explain to you with some simple arithmetic how that works. For example, I have a new target rifle, which is a 6mm, and I told the gunsmith who did the custom chambering to cut the neck of the chamber so that it would be 261 thousandths, 0.261, which is easy. Now I can draw a picture of that will make it easier to understand. Let's say here's the chamber of the cut profile of my new rifle, and it's 261 thousandths in diameter. Now I'm going to shoot, since it's a 243, I'll be shooting bullets that are 243 thousandths in diameter. So let's do a little simple arithmetic. We have 261 minus 243. That means we have this much clearance to mess with. Now then, we're going to put the cartridge in it. which will look like this. And since this is a bench rest target rifle, I want a very close fit between the neck and the chamber. In fact, I only want a clearance all around of only 1/1000th of an inch. That's cutting it pretty close. So we can subtract this and this, 2/1000ths, and now we're down to 16/1000ths. Cut this in half, which is 8/1000ths, and that's the biggie right there. We want those neck walls to be 8/1000ths of an inch thick all the way around. Now, I've already measured the cases, and I found out that they are 10/1000ths. So 10/1000ths minus 8/1000ths, and we come up with 2/1000ths left, and that's the amount that I want to cut off the case neck. I simply want to trim away 2/1000ths, and then I'll have a perfect fit of the case in this chamber with only 2/1000ths total clearance, or 1/1000th of an inch all the way around. Pretty simple. Ned asked me to explain a phenomenon known as the dreaded donut. It's a problem that's peculiar, I suppose, to bench rest shooters because it can cause some accuracy problems. Let me explain how it works, and I'll also tell you an easy way to avoid it. What happens when you fire a cartridge? This is, in case you hadn't guessed, is the profile of a cartridge. When you fire it, of course, the pressures are going this way always, and the brass wants to flow forward. As a matter of fact, that's the reason that cases lengthen, so that we have to trim them. There is the dreaded donut phenomenon is caused by a tendency of brass to particularly form here. It sweeps up out of the shoulder and over like this and forms a rather undersized area right here. And it goes all the way around the neck just at the shoulder. Now the problem with that is when a bullet is seated, let's say this is the bullet now, in a tightly fitting neck, as I've demonstrated with a specific fit of the case neck to the chamber, it pushes this donut up and out so that it actually forms a bump on the outside of the neck. Now, two bad things happen. First of all, it is damaging the bullet when you press it in. Also, it is making a tight fit here. Now, since this flow is irregular, this dreaded donut dimension is irregular from case to case, it means that some of the cases will have it, some will not have it, and since that is forming a tight lock right here, it means that the velocity will not be uniform from round to round. Also, you're damaging the bullet, which also degrades accuracy, so you've got a bad situation. But what do you do about it? Actually, it's one of the easiest problems to cure, and it can be done with a couple of inexpensive tools, which I'm going to show you now. Ned, the dreaded donut that I just explained with the diagram can be solved.
And I appreciate you doing that.
Just a couple of little tools like this, just a reamer and a gauge. Now, let me show you how simple this operation is. And the question is, of course, where do you get a gauge like this? You have your gunsmith make you one, because he knows the dimensions of your chamber, what the brass looks like, he can polish it. But it has to be a good size. Now, this is one of the cartridges I shoot in bench rest shooting. It's called the CBR, the Carmichael Bench Rest. It's my secret weapon. But watch when I put the gauge down inside the neck. It's a very tight fit, but it goes all the way down. That means there's no dreaded donut. Now, let me show you how this is going to pop like a champagne cork when I pull it out, because it is so closely fitted. Let's try another case. Down it goes. Oops. It's come to a dead stop. I'm going to put my thumb there so you can see how far it is. Right at the shoulder, exactly where the dreaded donut occurs.
Exactly.
So what would you do about it? Simple as this. Put this little reamer inside it. Give it a couple of turns. Presto. The dreaded donut is no more, all the way down.
Very good.
What could be simple?
Nothing.
A simple solution to a problem that can cost you a few thousandths of an inch. And when you're shooting for a group, the difference between the winners and the losers are always measured in just a few thousandths of an inch.
Jim, I believe that's the last one. Boy, that sure is a nice powder measure. I love these.
The super, you know,
Yeah.
those custom-made powder measures cost a good bit more than the over-the-counter variety, but for the long term, they're great because they have those wonderful adjustments and they're so smooth to operate.
Yeah, I like the smoothness, and they're a little more consistent than the
That's
over-the-counter
right.
variety.
Yeah, that's what you pay for. Also, you notice the long drop tube on this.
I like it.
That changes the fall velocity of the powder, so you can put a lot more powder into a case than you can. As a matter of fact, regardless of what powder measure you use, if you use a longer drop tube, you'll find that you can drop more powder into the case. That's particularly important when you're using compressed charges that tend to overflow the mouth of the case. Just lengthen the drop tube, you'd be surprised. Packs down very nicely. Okay, Ned, we're ready to go on to the next step, which is the bullet seating. We'll do it with the aid of this arbor press. This is great for traveling to bench rest tournaments. When you reload several times during the day, you can put this all in a satchel, travel with it, get it out and put it on a small workbench, load your ammo.
Now, there are lots of different types of these arbor presses available, too.
These. This came from Sinclair, which is one of the big suppliers of bench rest shooting equipment, and there's several names, several brands. And it's as simple as this. Notice I've just picked up a charged case, dropped a bullet on it, and take this bullet seating die and drop it down over here.
And we've already done these adjustments.
Pull the lever down, presto, there it is. Lift it off, and there is a loaded round. And the advantage of using a die like this, even though it's small and simple and portable, is also they tend to be very precise. I'm getting a very precise
absolutely.
alignment with that. And the bullet seating depth, which as you said is already adjusted, is easily done simply by using a screwdriver, putting in here and turning the screw to the depth you want. Make very fine adjustments. You can change it as you need.
Okay, well, that's great.
There we have it.
Well, let's go ahead and load the rest of this up and go shoot some.
I can't wait.
I can't either. Well, boy, these sure shot well out at the range, Jim. I was amazed. It's great. You spend that time before you fire form. You know, a lot of people fire form and then they go through these processes. And that's really kind of backwards. I'm not sure where that custom started.
Well, that's right. Well, now we've really prepared the case. We did everything you could to this fountain of accuracy. Now they've been fire formed, and the next time you shoot them, they're going to be even better than they were just now. I was amazed at how well they went in. Yeah, that's a super rifle you have, and as always, you were doing some good shooting.
No, well, I appreciate
Okay.
that.
Well, we have some fired cases. You remember what I said about cleanliness being next to godliness, and godliness is next to accuracy. So we're going to use this Never Dull to clean them up, and this is one of the best cleaners. It's a favorite.
And it really
with,
puts a
bench-
nice
look at
polish
that.
on them,
Oh,
too.
it does.
It makes all the other fellows envy your loads.
That's right. Makes better than you. So while you're working on this, I'm going to be doing some sizing.
Okay,
here.
and I'll go ahead and clean these up for you.
And the secret, again, to super accuracy, bench rest type accuracy, is using these small, unimportant looking sizing dies and seating dies. Now what I'm going to do with this small die is resize just a portion of the neck. Now the reason a die like this used in conjunction with an arbor press can be so accurate is because you can very precisely control the amount of resizing that you are doing. I'm going to resize this case and then I'm going to show you how it works. Again, just dropping the case into the die, simple. Now remember, this is only a neck sizing operation. And by simple press of the arbor press, it's down, it's sized. I turn it over. This is the ejection stroke. The primer is out. and I have a size case, and look, Ned, help, isn't that
That's
that
perfect.
little
Yeah.
polished edge?
That's perfect.
Ready for reloading. Next
Okay.
one.
Now, we were talking when we were out at the range about how important it is to match your powder lots. And
You bet it sure is. Even though you can always buy some 4064 or whatever you're using, and it'll always be pretty much the same and always work safely, there actually is a difference between powder lot to powder lot because they're made on separate days, maybe even different years. And that doesn't mean that one lot is better than another, but it does mean that you may find a lot that works best in your rifle. It has a burning characteristic, whatever that may be, that really suits your rifle, the length of your barrel, the particularly low density that you are using. So what I do when I find a lot that is best for my rifle, and I only have, say, a pound, I'll go back to the store where I bought it and I'll see if they have more of that same lot number. Usually they will. If you look on the shelf, all the lots will match because they come out of the same case. Match them all together, buy all they have. Then you're really set. I know some bench-rest shooters that advertise in shooting magazines, I want lot so-and-so of this particular powder, and I'll pay twice what you paid to get it, because they feel that matching the lot number to their load is so important.
it's just one more little trick in that accuracy chain.
It's part of it, exactly.
Okay, well, we'll
Isn't
go
it
ahead.
simple?
We'll
See, I'm
finish
doing
these
this
up
whole
and-
thing. We're sizing, and we're seating, and we're priming, all with just these few tools right here.
You can't beat that.
You betcha.
Well, we'll go ahead and finish these up and come back.
Okay.
All right?
Ned, this bunch of cases, now that they've been fire formed in your rifle, is going to be even better than were the first time you fired them. And just before we put the primer in, one more trick that I always use is cleaning the smudge out of the primer pocket. That's a simple tool. Drop it in, give it a twist, fresh as new inside. That makes sure that the primer will go right back down to the bottom again. It will not be cushioned by primer
Residue.
and the dirty stuff that can ruin accuracy.
Jim, here's our last one, and that's going to be the last one we're going to work with. And I think what we'd like to do now is go ahead and reach right up
Well,
to the top level and show
you
the
bet.
concentricity of this. And please
we
explain
can,
why
we
that's
can
important.
measure how good this case, how good this reload
Let's
is.
see how well
And
we
actually,
did.
I'm dropping it in this concentricity gauge, and what I'm going to measure is the run out of the bullet. And that is a measurement of how true the bullet is in alignment with the rest of the case, which tells us how square the bullet's going to go into the bore.
This is
Look
really
at that.
critical,
Look
too.
at that. It's critical. And this dial is reading in tenths of a thousandths, so we see that you are less than a thousandth of an inch of run out total.
Now, Jim, why is that so important?
Well, as I said, because it means that the bullet is perfectly aligned with the case. It means also that the bullet will be more perfectly aligned with the barrel when the cartridge is loaded. It's already headed in the right direction, in other words. And that's what we want. That was the whole idea of taking so much time and so much care with these cases, so that when the final round was loaded, that bullet would be pointed in the right direction before you pulled the trigger.
And now, Jim, we were talking about one other thing here during the break while we were working with all the brass, and that is determining how far down to resize that neck.
Well, actually, for super accuracy, I want the neck to be only snug enough to hold the bullet firmly, not too tight. If it's too tight, you get into other problems, such as damaging the bullet. I like it snug enough that you cannot pull the bullet out or that will not be battered into the case. And that's another advantage of using dies like this, these small dies, is because you can adjust the amount of sizing that you do. The way these work, even though they're very simple, they have a small button or sleeve insert inside that are available in different sizes. And it's, you get one, you can get say you get 3 or 4 for your 220 Swift. And then by experimentation, you get the one that sizes just the amount that you want it to hold, just tight enough. For example, this one is .224. You could have another one that drops in there with .220, let's see, 244, 246, 240, and just experiment a couple of thousands at a time by changing these buttons until you get just the pressure you want. And also you'll find that by changing these and experimenting with, you'll find that you are able to manipulate the accuracy a bit. You'll find out when they're too tight or too loose. That's another one of the great advantages of hand loading, particularly with simple tools like this, is that you have so much control over each load just by experimenting. Ned, this is something that all shooters should see. It's what I call a virtual reality stroll down the path of a rifle barrel. This is a fiber optics probe that goes down into a rifle barrel, and we'll be able to see on the monitor what is inside. And what we're going to see, and you wait and see, is some of the reasons that rifles never shoot well. We'll probably see some wear, we'll probably see some manufacturing flaws, but I bet we see some dirt. And that is one of the biggest problems with accuracy. People think they clean their rifles, but they really don't. And we need to make a tape, the very next tape, I think, on how to properly clean a rifle.
Well, it's
for the
funny you
best
should
accuracy.
mention that, because that's what we're going to do.
Okay, here we go.
It's going to include rifle cleaning.
All right, we're going all the way down. We're going to start in the chamber. There we are, coming up through the chamber, and there's the throat. Look at that. See all those little cracks? Looks like the surface of the moon.
Oh, yeah.
What that is, I call it alligator hide, but it's erosion. It's where the metal has burned away because of the heat of a cartridge. This rifle's been shot a lot. Of course, if it's your rifle, I know it's been shot a lot.
Well, yes, it is one of my rifles, but it is an older barrel.
See, now, here we're looking, that's the top of a land. As we rotate the probe, we see the groove, and then right on it, another land, a groove, and another land. That gets you oriented.
This is
See
an
how rough that
incredible
is?
tool, Jim.
It is fantastic, isn't it? We're seeing something that very few people have ever seen. And you see those radial lines that look like
Yes.
hoops in the barrel?
Right.
That is a manufacturing flaw. Not really a flaw, but those are the grooves made by the drill that drilled the hole in the barrel. They just were not reamed out.
So no matter how, the point of this is that no matter how hard the owner of this rifle tries, and no matter how much time he spends on his custom loads, he's never going to get maximum performance out of this barrel.
That's
anymore.
right. It will not max out.
He being me.
The way we want it to, because there's some flaws that are hard to overcome, but yet it may shoot a half inch at 100 yards. Sometimes they'll fool you. Now, as we move on up the barrel, we're getting away from the erosion.
Now, what
But
are the
look
white spots, Jim?
Those white spots, that is just, that's dirt. That's where some powder fouling has accumulated, and then that has, in turn, has absorbed some moisture, and I call them blossoms.
Blossoms?
So that your barrel...
the technical term?
Well, that's the Carmichael term. But your barrel is in full blossom. You have a garden. You have a garden of blossoms.
Yes, this one is waiting in line to be rebarreled.
I would hope so. Now as we get on up here, see, that's just caked fouling.
Yeah, as we come out, it's, I think, important to mention so everyone knows, as we come down the barrel,
We're just about halfway through the barrel now.
yeah, the bullet is moving faster and faster as it gets towards the end of the barrel, and of course reaches maximum speed right before it departs the barrel. And that barrel is a mess, isn't it?
It is a mess.
I won't be shooting this one in competition.
Well, I bet you clean it again better. See all the fouling there.
I may see if I can sell it to one of the cameramen or something. I'll make them a heck of a deal.
Well, there's a lot there to see.
Yes, look at that, the tooling there.
Tooling, yes. Of course, when they're roughly tooled like this, then they're more prone to fouling.
Right.
Because the rough surface is like a file on the bullet. It jerks copper away, and also it's a hiding place for fouling, powder fouling. And of course, when the powder fouling gets down those cracks where you can't get it out, then it absorbs moisture, and that begins corrosion. And then the first thing you know, you have a rusty barrel.
Now, how long do you spend cleaning your rifle after, say, shooting 20 rounds? About how long does it take you?
It doesn't
brush
take me
in,
very.
patch
I can clean it almost perfectly in 5 minutes, but I have a routine.
Yes, yes.
And I think that developing a routine and having the right combination of chemicals and equipment is the secret. Look at
Well,
that.
we'll be dealing with that in troubleshooting your
This-
rifle number 3.
This looks like a rock garden now.
Yes, that's really rough. That is really rough.
Or the city dump. We're almost to the muzzle
And
now.
when the gun was new, it shot very well, but it's had a pretty rough life,
And here we come out the muzzle.
right to the
And
crown.
almost a little rust there, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
See how rough that is? And there's the crown. We're seeing this in about 400 times actual size.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you've seen it. What do you think about the trip down your rifle barrel?
I think this particular rifle barrel is a little depressing, but I think it's important that people realize how this can affect accuracy, because I know I get a lot of mail, I'm sure you do too, where people have spent a tremendous amount of time working on their loads and they just
Right.
can't get that just right load. And a lot of times your barrel just is no good anymore.
That's
and
right.
Other times it's shooting technique.
And the shooting technique and cleaning technique. A lot of people think that they're cleaning their barrels right, and they simply are not.
Well, we were just on a shoot recently where we saw a gentleman who was having problems cleaning his barrel, and I noticed you took some time to show him how to do it properly, and he was very appreciative. I'm sure he shot better the next day.
I hope so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
John, we've gone to a lot of trouble to load some super accurate ammunition.
Yes.
And you really know the fine points now. But in order to get the very best out of your ammunition, you have to know how to shoot it. Now, don't laugh, because I get a lot of mail from people saying, I bought a wonderful rifle, I have the best ammunition, I take it out to the range and shoot it, and it doesn't hit anything. They say, why don't my rifle shoot as well as your rifles? But how are you going to tell someone? Well, it's your shooting technique. Some people just are not good shots, even when they think they are. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of hints right now that will help you get the best accuracy out of your rifle and your hand loads when you go to the range. And here's the secret. Let the rifle do the work. Let the rifle do the work. Don't try to be a good shot. The rifle will do it all by itself. Let me show you what I mean. See, I'm comfortably seated here. Have the rifle on a very elaborate rest. Now, you don't have to have a rest this elaborate, but there are good bench rest pedestals or sandbags or something you use. You want it solid, and pay particular attention to what looks like an unimportant sandbag back here, this leather bag. Now, let me show you, and then I'm going to let you do it. Getting comfortable. Notice I'm not even touching the rifle. I'm just reaching around it very comfortably like this, my shoulder just barely touching it. Very lightly here. Now move the rifle around. You notice I'm moving this. I'm moving this so that I'm on the target. Now I'm ready to make a fine adjustment. And again, just by squeezing this bag, the rifle goes up and down. Does the work. But still solid on that, you see. I can squeeze it solid very easily and touch it off. Come back. The rifle's doing the work. Let all the bench is doing the work. The rest is doing the work. I'm not doing anything but pulling the trigger. What could be simpler? Now, let me give you another hint. Always when you go to the range, you know to wear shooting glasses. Wear real good ear protection. I wear earplugs and ear muffs over the top of that. People say, you know, I really don't like to shoot my gun. It kicks me too much. Let's say put ear muffs on. They say, well, what's ear muffs have to do with being kicked? I say the part that's hurting is your ears. That's what it is. And I get fan mail comes back, read a letter, say that was the best advice I ever had. I just put some earplugs on, the recoil went away. Okay, now you sit down here. Want to get comfortable on the stool. We're going to have to how tall are you?
7'9".
Gee whiz. And I'm only 6'8". I knew you were taller than me. So let's screw the stool all the way down so you'd be comfortable. You want a good erect position, pretty much.
You want to be able to bend into it, right?
All right, now look through the scope. Bring this hand is going to do most of the work, even more than the trigger finger. Now look through the scope. All right, now just squeeze the bag. See how it moves it?
Yep.
Moves it up and down easy.
Yep.
And just slide it until it's on the bullseye.
Okay.
All right, now very lightly go up and touch that. You see, you're not doing anything. The rest is doing the work. You're squeezing a little sand.
Yep. It
Now,
rises,
what could be easier than that?
rises and
And you know
lowers.
you're going to hit it.
Nearly all you need is right there in your left
That's right.
hand, using that bag.
Yeah, put the left hand to work. That's the secret.
And
And
also,
being comfortable.
and also, we've noticed that we don't have the bolt in our gun,
That's right.
so that we're
inside.
safe inside.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there's Ned.
Yeah, right. Here he comes. Now, don't tell him what I told you about this, because if you do, we can always beat him.
Okay, good.
Hi, Dad.
This is great. I've been shooting with this man for years, and what you had to do was show him how to shoot better, okay? All the bets are off now.
All right.
Okay, how do you like this rifle?
It's very beautiful.
You do?
It's very beautiful.
Well, keep your hands off of it. It's mine.
As a matter of fact, it's same caliber as the one I used
It's
on the
the
range.
220
right?
Swift.
The 220 Swift.
It's my favorite caliber.
Well, I feel as though I could be a Rhodes Scholar now for competent reloading and knowing more about my rifle and being able to use it accurately and safely from you two men. And I'm sure everybody in the audience is phenomenally well enriched in their knowledge of our sport of reloading after watching these tapes.
That's right. And if everyone does just this, the way I showed, they can't go wrong. It's going to make their hand loads and their rifles much more accurate than they ever thought they were.
And to really re-emphasize, I mean, obviously we're not shooting here. Please wear ear protection because I occasionally would want to be a big macho guy and say, well, I don't really need it because it's a small 22 or something. You know, this is very, very important. Protect your ears, protect your eyes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Safety, you can't stress safety too much, especially when you go to the range. Another thing, when you go to the range, I'll just throw this in here because it's one of my pet peeves. I hate to see people at the range walk up to the benches with their bolts closed. I'm sure that there's not a round in there, but it makes me very nervous. It's not always convenient to leave the bolt out when you walk up to the bench, but at least have it completely open so everyone can see that. You just can't be
Take it
safe
out if
enough.
you can. Take it out if you can and put it in your pocket.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Safety is good manners, too.
Exactly, yes.
excellent.
Makes
And
everybody else
you're-
around you comfortable.
Speaking of good manners, you're really a gentleman, John. It's been a pleasure.
So are you, James. And
This has been super.
listen, I hope you guys have enjoyed yourselves and you ladies have enjoyed yourselves with these two tapes. We're going to see you again real soon.
Let's go make another tape.
Well, no, it's early enough. We can go out to the range.
All right.
Let's take
You're on.
these loads out there and do it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.